Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Duet Reviews, brought to you by Cup of Hemlock Theatre. I will be your host for this episode, Ryan Borochovitz, co-artistic producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre, and I'm joined today by my other co-artistic producer of all things here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre, Mackenzie Horner. Hello, Mac. How are you doing today?
Hello, Ron Burgundy. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I am Ron. I'm confused. How am I Ron Burgundy here?
You look a news anchor with your necktie.
Oh, well, I'm wearing a necktie because I'm trying to bring my ensemble A game because I usually have nothing interesting to wear on these
That's
episodes
right.
for today's discussion of An Intervention, a play
It's
written by Mike Bartlet,
mhm,
presented in its Toronto premiere as the inaugural production of the new indie company Downstage Theatre Company.
that's
It
right.
ran at Native Earth Performing Arts' Giza studio from February 11th to 15th, 2026. So we are recording and releasing this episode after the run has already come to an end. It was an interesting production directed by Steven Hao, one of the busiest theater artists here
Yes.
in Toronto and Southern Ontario writ large, and starring Jaden Nasato, friend of the Cup, and
That's right.
Jordan Cooper. So this is an interesting one we're talking about today. I'm excited to get into it. Even though the run is over, we will do a pre-spoiler and post-spoiler because this is a published play by a pretty well-known
Mhm.
playwright that might have some versions coming up later that people might be watching this who don't
Absolutely.
want it spoiled. But before we get too far into that, Mac, hello, good sir. What is in your cup
Hello.
today?
Well, today I am drinking just some Crystal Light, but it's kind
As you
of
do.
dark red. Yes, like I do. And it's dark red, kind of like our port in the show.
Ooh. So okay, there you go. You didn't want to drink actual port to be on theme?
No,
No,
no, I don't like port. I don't like
no.
alcohol to begin with, really.
Yeah, so interesting
You and me
choice.
both, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how we have this show about, ooh, what are you drinking? And then none of the three people who run the show drink alcohol. So,
That's right.
yeah, so we usually have pretty boring beverage choices. However, I don't, because what's in
Ooh.
my cup? I have Taylor's Yorkshire Tea, hashtag not yet
Hey,
sponsored, but maybe someday.
we'll
Um,
tag them.
we haven't been in the previous episode, unless you
We'll
have
keep tagging
secretly.
them.
We will eventually maybe start tagging them. Hey, the thing is, I have this little box that I got for free at Stratford, as we explained
Hmm.
a few episodes ago. And there's only like 10 tea bags in this, and I've been exclusively using it on these episodes starting at the
I love
beginning
it.
of this year. So eventually I will run out, but I could just keep the box and pretend I'm still drinking it, even if I've run
It is at
out.
the grocery stores.
Oh, well, then I couldn't just buy it, but I don't want to have to pay for it. I want them to pay us.
That's
So
right.
then again,
That's
I do
right.
have this coupon on the bottom of the box for $1 off Yorkshire tea. So perhaps I will do that. And I'm drinking it in not in my cup today. I thought about my cup,
Ooh.
but instead I chose to use my Sad Ibsen Theater mug. That was
Ah,
the,
very good.
as I've mentioned on the cup before, this is the indie company that I founded when I was a
Hmm.
youngin,
That's
the
right.
essentially now defunct company. So in honor of this new indie company, I thought I would break out some indie solidarity merch here.
I love
So
it. I love
fun.
it.
So something I should mention at the outset here is TTC be crazy sometimes
That's right. You
because
got
as
screwed over.
I was rushing to get to this production on time,
You gave yourself an hour.
I gave myself plenty of time to get
Yeah.
there. Sometimes that just happens that there's some sort of disturbance on Dundas that diverts the streetcar to several streets away. So I did not make it on time for the beginning of the show that we
That's right.
attended yesterday at time of recording. As a result, I missed the first maybe like 15 minutes of it, which
Yeah,
as
the
you
first
tell me
scene.
was just one scene. So I
Yes.
did get to see the rest of it. Context clues allowed me to
Hmm.
figure out what I had missed. But
Yep.
as a result, if I'm hosting this episode, I think I want to lob our non-spoiler plot description over to you since you saw the entirety of it and maybe
That's
you could
right.
help fill in the gaps of what I missed.
Yeah, so I mean, an intervention, basically, long story short, it's about two different interventions going on at the same time. You have Jaden's character, who's called, I believe, A.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she's A. And then you also have, let me just pull it up
Can
here.
I can I
Yeah,
ask a question about the A and the B
yes,
of it all?
yes.
So Jaden Misato plays A, Jordan Cooper plays B.
Hmm.
Are those letter monikers ever named in the show, or
No,
is that okay? So that is just functionally just for the sake of them reading
yes,
their script to know I do the A lines, you do the B
yes.
lines. To call these characters that as if it's their proper name seems silly to me.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
basically,
two
basically,
nameless
yeah.
characters.
Yeah, like you could just have called them him and her
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
done the same thing. I think it was just A and B because then you can swap the genders and So who you cast, you can have two men, you can have two women.
Yeah. Is there anything
Yeah.
in the dialogue, as far as you caught, that would prohibit, or at least without changing pronouns?
I mean, they say Jaden's character is a elementary school teacher, so maybe you'd want to cast a female in that role because
Men can teach elementary school.
that's
That's
the thing.
not
That's the thing. Like I can only that's the only thing I could think of is statistically more females teach elementary school,
okay, but that
but
statistically
like
doesn't feel like a reason that
well,
you.
that's exactly like
Yeah.
that's the only thing I could think of. But other than
Okay.
that, like everything else, you could easily put either gender in the role and it would work.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Continue.
So basically, you have two different interventions going on over several scenes that where they kind of keep jumping into each other's lives. So the first scene that you missed, it is a scene where A's character, Jaden's character, has come back from a protest that B's character Jordan was supposed to attend, and the protest is in regards to the fact that their country will be invading a country in the Middle East for what is deemed as like a humanitarian crisis situation. And Jaden's character is upset because Jordan's character seems to feel the invasion is warranted, going like, military intervention should be needed if there is, harm being put on innocent citizens. And Jaden's like, well, the invasion is going to kill a ton of innocent citizens. So that's what starts their kind of debate with each other. That's going to be an ongoing riff. Is that Jordan's character chose not to go to the protest and instead chose to hang out with his current girlfriend Hannah, who will be an unseen kind of what's her name from Frasier, Niles.
Maris.
Yes, yeah, yes,
Sure.
exactly, exactly. She kind of becomes like Maris from Frasier, just this unseen shrew of a character that Jaden's character and apparently his entire friend group and mother do not like, as we find out later. And so basically, Jaden's drinking in the character's drinking in the show gets worse and worse and worse over time. And in this first scene in particular, she is already quite drunk and continues to get drunk to the point where she becomes a bit belligerent to the point where she shoves Jordan's character, which upsets him. As he leaves, Jaden's character gives this story about individuals she knew in high school who was nicknamed Casper because he was so pasty white. The bullying got so bad that ultimately, trigger warning, he did complete suicide, but his family didn't even know because he was so pasty white and couldn't tell until some time later.
Wait, what? Sorry, back that up. What?
Yeah.
How could they not tell that he was deceased because his skin
be-
is white? Confusion. What?
Because he was so pale. Like so pale already that like it took them a minute to realize he was dead because the mom pops her head into the room and says, "Hey honey, get up to go to
Okay,
school."
sure. As it
He's
would
like
with
lying in
anyone,
bed.
regardless of their pigmentation. I feel.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing of the story is he's bullied because of how like almost albino-y white, I guess, is what it's
Okay,
described
sure.
as. He's called Casper. But basically, he's bullied so badly, which causes him to drink a lot, and he gives up playing the harmonica, which is this thing that he likes to do, keep himself happy. So ultimately, he completes suicide. The family finds him, and Gina reveals that her character went to school with this individual, and that may be the cause of the ongoing trauma of her drinking. That she was deeply affected by this story, even though it's not specifically said. But it's like, why else would that story be at the top of the show? Maybe to give reason to why she feels the need to drink to excess the way she does.
Okay, so wait, was she
Yeah.
close to Casper? Because he never comes up again in the portion of the play that I saw after this first scene.
I think from the monologue she gave, it was more about guilt, about
Okay,
not doing
did she
more.
bully him? Was she one
I
of the
think
ones?
the monologue seems to suggest that she was a bystander, maybe like participating in a bit of the name calling.
Okay,
Wasn't like an active bully, but wasn't someone who made an active effort to change the outcome of the situation.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, so we have that, and then from that first interaction between A and B, the fallout begins to spiral. Where in the following scenes we find out that B has been avoiding A is falling more and more into alcoholism, which B is concerned about, but she blows it off. At the same time, B's character is falling more and more into this relationship that clearly upsets Jaden's character. And so basically, they're both falling into this very dark spiral. And then we won't spoil what happens in the end, but ultimately, these two interventions come to a head.
Sorry, so to clarify the two interventions, so there's the military intervention that initiates their
Sorry, there's
argument.
three actually. So yeah, there's three. There's the military intervention.
Okay.
There's Jaden's alcoholism intervention for her character, and there's Jordan's intervention with his relationship with Hannah.
So to clarify, were there actual like scenes of interventions like where they confront each other like with a group of friends? Like
No, 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 no,
okay,
no, 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 no. It's just the intervention between the two of them.
okay, okay, and that happened in the first scene that I missed
I'm trying to think. Do we talk about the drinking in the first scene?
because like I
He
don't really.
briefly mentions it. He briefly mentions her drinking, but basically it's like, hey, how much have you drank today? Type of thing.
Okay.
It's that soft walk into the water that gets more direct as the show goes on.
Because I would say while both the subjects of Jaden's character's drinking and Jordan's
Mhm.
character's bad relationship, all those come up later, I never really felt like there was any scene that I would describe as having the aesthetics of what we think of as an intervention when you
I wouldn't
actually
say it's a
do.
classic intervention. I'd say it's more like a friend intervention going, hey, I'm concerned about you. You need to get help. Or, hey, the relationship you are in is not good.
Okay. Okay, just to clarify,
Like, it's
because
not
I
like,
felt like I
like
was
the,
missing the actual intervention part
yeah,
of
no,
this
no,
show called the
yeah,
intervention.
no. Yeah, there's no like actual big intervention with everybody sitting around reading letters of how this makes them feel. No, no, no.
And I figured we wouldn't have that like explicitly by virtue of the fact that it's a two-person cast,
Yes.
but I thought maybe they alluded to how ooh, we just came from an intervention or we just had an intervention between the scenes. No, but nothing of the sort was the
No,
case. Okay.
no, no, you're
Good
good. You're
context
good.
for me specifically as the
Yes.
one person who missed the first scene.
All good, all good. But yeah, that's kind of the plot without spoiling the plot.
Okay.
Um, when we get into spoiler zone, we will put up a proper trigger warning because we will be talking about heavy topics.
Well, you
And
already have talked about a heavy topic in
true.
light of Casper. So there's a
Yes.
blanket trigger warning on this whole
Yes.
episode. Below this episode, there is a trigger warning
Yes.
for various
Yes.
topics that if you don't want to
Yes.
continue hearing about, no, we will get
Yep.
into them.
Yes. Exactly. Okay. So now, Ryan, kind of give your general thoughts because you came in a bit later, but you still were able to pick up a majority of the show. I'd say maybe you missed 15 minutes max.
So, like, I thought it was interesting because I knew that I had missed
Mhm.
stuff that you've now filled me in
Mhm.
on.
Mhm.
I spent a lot of the first scene that I saw where the two characters are in an art gallery together.
Yes.
I spent a lot of that scene trying to pick up context clues, and
Yep.
I feel like a lot of the important stuff that you just
Mhm.
said was
Yep.
brought up in that first scene is mentioned as early as
Yep.
that second scene.
Yes.
It almost feels to me like you could cut that first scene and very little, at least contextual information would be lost.
You could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but then in that case, you're playing with the semantics of what do they remember, what does he like, what does he remember, what does she remember, versus us seeing the incident itself that really incites the situation of
Mm-hmm.
B's character avoiding A's character.
Yeah, I just kind of thought it was
Yeah.
interesting how much of what happens in that first scene
Yeah.
gets mentioned later. Like there's a thing that I don't know, do I have it here? Yeah, one of the books on the shelves is behind the plant, so I won't
Yes.
pull it down now. But Jeffrey Sweet's Dramatist's Toolkit,
Yeah.
just a playwriting helpful guidebook. He says something that when he teaches playwriting seminars, like
Yeah.
for students, he'll often have them read the play on
Yeah.
page 10 or 11 or something and pretend that's the beginning of the play. What is lost? Do you feel like anything is lost?
Love that exercise.
And often the students would find, you know what, the play is better if I started there or around there,
Hmm.
because so much of what they thought was necessary setup
Yeah.
actually just becomes fertile subtext for what comes later. So
True.
this almost by me happenstantially,
Yeah.
by no design of my own, missing that
Yeah.
first scene, and then so much of what was important in that first scene does get brought up later, but then I have to suss out, okay, but what really happened and kind of be
Yeah.
extra attentive to it. Maybe this is a belated dramaturgy note for our dear friend Mike Bartlet, the playwright, the famous
Hmm.
British playwright here. Do we need this first scene? I don't know. I didn't see it, so I'm not
I
in a
would
position to judge.
I I would say you do just because it ensures to the audience that what B is saying about A about their drinking and about the shove that it doesn't fall into the he said she said. Like it's very clear from seeing that scene that yes, there is some type of drinking issue with A right away, and that this debate, this confrontational energy between them is always there, and that A took it too far. So it ensures that you have seen that inciting moment because it's so pivotal to the rest of the show. Because if A doesn't shove B, then B doesn't avoid A's calls, which then means that, when we get to the darker scenes toward the end of the play, when A is calling B urgently as a friend reaching out for help, and they are avoiding and B is avoiding the call, we know what precipitated that. It's but I would be interested to see a production that did remove that scene just to see what it
That's what
would
I
run
saw.
as. Right.
Yeah,
I'd
but
be interested to watch the show again without seeing that scene just to see if it would run the same way. Like I'd be
yeah.
very interested. But
I guess the question, and I know this is getting maybe a little too detailed
yeah,
for pre-spoiler, but
yeah,
the interesting thought that I'm coming to with this is because you have what seems like a reasonable reason,
yeah.
haha, for
Haha.
why that scene is
Yeah,
essential, because it creates the certainty
yeah,
of what would be absent in that he
yes.
said she said version. But the question I have for you is why is that certainty essential? Your favorite play is Doubt, which is all about though we don't know what really happened, who we can trust, what to believe.
Yes.
So maybe there is something rich to the fact that ooh, we don't really know what happened. We are relying on these competing testimonies.
I would say like I love Doubt's ambiguity. Like that is a joy
Mhm.
of that play is the ambiguity. This play though, because it's so heavy in ensuring that we as the audience know what's going on, so we are the impartial judge of the situation, and ensures we don't pick sides in the piece. Like it ensures that like because I know what happened from that first scene, I remain impartial to who I feel is right, who I feel is wrong, because both characters are in the right and the wrong at both times. Like neither one of them, like neither one is like saint and sinner. They're both flawed human beings, and so by seeing that precipitating scene, it ensures that the rest of the piece doesn't fall into a he said she said, and then you get blinded by by those blinders, as it were. So like I would say for me, like some plays thriving in like the ambiguity. I would say this one wants you to be the third party judge who sees all the evidence and can make the decision of who was in the right, who was in the wrong. And ultimately, in my opinion, as the judge, I would say both characters are in the wrong, and both characters have led each of their characters to this kind of darker spot we find them in at the end of the show in that final
Okay.
scene.
Okay. So
Yeah.
apologies for derailing us on
Yes.
that thought.
Yes.
General appraisal, Mac, as the one who saw the entire show.
Yes.
What did you think of this production?
It was uncomfortable. It
Mm-hmm.
was intense. There were several moments where I was literally leaning forward in my seat just because of how invested I was in like in the situation. Then at the same time, I was also leaning back in moments where I was feeling really unsettled because you knew that the situation was getting so heated under the collar, and so like basically one wrong move can set off this powder keg at this point. Like they're so contentious with each other. Like I was saying to Jaden after the show, this feels almost like a darker, twisted version of like when Harry met Sally, where we keep dropping in on these episodic moments when Harry and Sally meet each other. But instead of, Harry and Sally literally lifting each other up throughout the piece as they improve themselves, every time we're meeting them, they're just one step further down the rung of spiraling out.
Although, not to get into
Yeah,
spoilers, but the
yeah,
language of lifting up is
yeah.
maybe a little relevant here.
Ah, yes, it
We'll
is.
say
Yes, it
more
is.
about that post
Yeah,
spoiler,
exactly.
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would say like I thoroughly enjoyed this production. Like it made me feel a lot of things. Like I was messing with Istvan because he saw it the day before us, and he was saying how like this was right up there with Bug with like the intensity and the unease that this piece elicited, and I was like, absolutely. Like I was feeling so queasy and just ugh. Like I feel nervous for these characters every time they run into each other because I don't know who's going to blow up at who next. Because we've seen both characters blow up at each other. But then there's also a lot of sweetness. Like one of my favorite moments of the show is in the art gallery scene 2, where the first scene you saw, and it ties back to scene 1 where they debate what is a best friend. Because B says Hannah is his best friend, and it's like, well, hold on. We've known each other for 3 years. We've hung out way more, gone to events together. Like, we have the stronger relationship. You just, started seeing Hannah. Then in scene 2, when he calls her his best friend, and you see
When
Jaden.
B calls A his best
Yes,
friend,
yes,
her
yes,
could refer to
yes,
Hannah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So when B calls A his best friend, and she smiles because she's so happy that he called her that. There's such a sweetness there. Like the show has a lot of sweetness to it at the same time as it has a lot of pain to it. I think this production really balanced it. Like, I mean, we'll dive more into what goes on in the show, but I would just say Jaden's ability to play very drunk, but not play it stereotypically like, sloshing the words and, hee hee, yeah, that type of ridiculous drunk that we see where people are trying to play drunk. There was such an authenticity to people who are that drunk, who play so normal that it's hard to sometimes pick up on it until they do one little thing, like either stumble or there's one little thing they do that tips you off. Jaden just did such a good job of playing that in every scene of what level of drunk is she. And then there's the final scene when B comes in and she's just sitting in that chair, almost like that told you so.
Yeah,
Like
in this kind of like gargoyle-y pose. It was
yes,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Like she was just so captivating to watch as a character. And then on the other end, you got Jordan, who is so he was such a fascinating role to me because at the beginning of the piece, I was like, dude, you're not picking up on it here. Clearly there's more going on with her, and you're just focused on Hannah. But then he has that monologue about midway through, he explains why he is connected to Hannah the way he is, and I was like, oh, I get you now. I understand why you would do this. As much as it's clearly destroying your relationship with A's character, I can understand why you are needing this Hannah escape hatch that you built for yourself. And so it's really, really a well done performance, and especially when you get into the emotion, and he really is the heart of the story. That really does have the emotions and why he chooses not to support or chooses to support the invasion, but then also feels guilt about supporting the invasion. Like he has a lot of multifacets and wears his heart on his sleeve. Like he is someone who, is you can always see what's happening to him. His character does not hide his emotions, and Jordan owns that and is willing to sit in that. Like he's not like he's willing to be genuine in his pain or in his frustration with these characters. Oh, and I will say something I did forget is that during the pre-show there is a man and woman podcast where they're talking about addiction.
Like an actual like real life podcast, or
Yes.
is okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Once again, it's almost like those couples in like When Harry Met Sally, doing their little stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're talking both these podcasts are talking about different addiction stories. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's very
Okay.
interesting. It's very, very
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah. Either way,
Yeah.
yeah. Ryan, I kind of have rambled a bit. What did you
Yeah, it's fine.
think
I'm
of
pretty much in
this?
agreement with you. I was certainly like captivated the whole time. I was never bored
Yeah.
for a second.
Yeah.
I think I have maybe some questions about the script that maybe
Yes.
we'll get more into post
Yes.
spoiler. But as far as just our two performers, I thought they were both excellent. I really like what you were just saying about Jordan really like wearing his heart on his sleeve, that there's nothing hidden. He is exactly like what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Even when he reveals things later that we didn't necessarily know, it's not that he was ever hiding anything. It's just, oh, well, this piece of information didn't feel relevant prior to this point. Whereas contrast with Jaden, she's similarly earnest, but in a way that has like this big sarcasm armor all the time.
Yes.
And something that I really loved,
Yes.
I don't know if this was necessarily her idea or perhaps Stevens as the director, but there's just clearly a lot of Britishisms written into the script that I guess I don't know if Bartlett is the kind of writer who would let other nationalities edit the script to make it less localized, or if he's insistent that keep it as British as possible. But every time one of those came up, she would like put on a fake British accent.
Yes.
Like, oh bloody hell. Like that's like
Yeah.
it's just like a quirky, funny thing that this Canadian person does when they aren't being sincere. That they just like turn on a fake British accent and delve into these Britishisms.
Catch.
Yeah, I just thought that was like such a lovely fix for it's so jarring when you're like watching a play that you know is British, but the characters aren't doing accents. And then they say, well, that's rubbish in their Canadian accent. And you're like, okay. Could we not have changed that just if the script is in that kind of dialect, just commit to doing the accents, I guess. But this was like such an elegant fix to that I thought was really interesting.
I got a question for you.
Okay, sure.
So Istvan, in his review that he wrote,
okay, which I deliberately haven't read yet because I wanted to just get our thoughts out before being tainted by his very good insights, but go on.
He brought up an interesting thought, which was, to him anyway, he felt maybe the characters are supposed to be maybe a decade older. Like instead of the late 20s, early 30s, should be late 30s, early 40s. And I was sitting thinking, I'm like, I don't know. For me, I'm like, I kind of appreciate that they're younger because the whole protesting angle and being, socially active, like going out to these protests and things like that feels like a very, right now, a younger person's like energy for like political activism, like getting out in the streets and protesting, and then also just like the spiral of like a young couple, like just like B's character gets with someone who he really shouldn't be with, but he's in his late, like mid to late 20s. And so,
Mhm.
you know, you that like how many times have I've seen that happen where they get together, they get married, things fall apart, they get divorced by like 32. You know, it's like
Yeah.
one of those things where like I was like, no, I can see how you could play this older, but I also at the same time I think it works well with Jordan and Jaden being in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, I see both sides of this. I would
Yeah,
need to maybe rewatch the play with that lens in mind
yeah,
because it wasn't
yeah,
something that really like stood out to me
yeah,
like, oh, they're
yeah,
miscast as the wrong
yeah.
age. I think whereas if I understand your point
Hmm.
correctly, it's the you understand the B Hannah relationship as
Yeah,
just like, yeah, they're young, they're reckless, they're in love, and
yeah.
they'll be divorced in no time, and that's
Hmm.
just a thing that young
Which A
people,
calls.
yeah,
A calls that.
yeah, then that's just the kind of
Yeah.
situation that young people who don't really
Hmm.
experience enough life before jumping into
Hmm.
marriage find themselves in. I could
Yeah.
just as easily see the alternative side that
Hmm.
still justifies this textually that if they are older, it's like I've had my fun, I've
Yeah.
dated, I'm finding someone who kind of works, it's time to settle
Hmm.
down. I think this is just the one. There was an interesting thing, I guess, also about, and maybe I just misheard this or misinterpreted because I had missed some important context earlier, but was there a line about, and I don't really feel like this is major spoilers, so we can say it here,
Hmm.
about how Hannah went through some sort of like artificial insemination to bear their child?
Oh no, I took it as like they got pregnant by accident, where it's like
Okay,
condom broke one night.
I could have sworn there was some kind of
Oh
line.
no, 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 you're right, you're right, you're right.
Am I? I'm not certain that I am, but yeah. What do you
Yes,
remember?
yes, you're right, because it is in that bar scene where Jaden's drinking from the steins,
Mhm.
and yeah, it does. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember that conversation now. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
see, and that to the point that we're counterposing like our
Yes.
feelings about the age of these characters here, that does seem like the kind of decision that an older couple who's
Well,
maybe tried for
I
a
mean, not
while would.
necessarily. You'll know by like your early 30s if you try a little bit, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's not working. You'll go get IVF and things like that.
But they notably weren't married, and maybe they're just the kind of couple that never feels the need to get like formally married, but it also
Yeah,
just seems like that's a weird step to make when you're like still just like dating.
I took it as once again like Hannah was was someone who was never going to get married.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, but they were going to be like common law to each other.
yeah, it's just kind of an interesting. I
Yeah,
think that whole
yeah,
element of it to me
yes,
supports
hmm,
they should be older reading, but in
yeah,
terms of just like the dynamic and the
yeah,
banter, I think their youth worked for
yeah,
it. I would
yeah.
need to see another version with older actors to be like, you
Yeah.
know what, I like that better
Yeah. Yeah. And I
or
will
not.
say we should give a shout out to our set costume and prop designer Claudia Mattis because the work they did with just having those furniture pieces and moving them around, the way they did create like an art gallery versus the living room versus that destructed living room and the futon, like just the way they used that limited space
Yeah, and a
was
traverse stage
yes.
configuration with audience on both sides, like to
Yeah.
make sure,
Yeah.
and that also just goes into the blocking and the directing too. That
That like honestly, that actually made it feel more almost like a tennis match at some points, where
mm,
like where because they or a boxing match because they had that little red rope.
stick to tennis.
Uh, Stick to tennis, okay, right? But it's one of those things where they're well, that's true, yes, because Jaden does play
That sorry,
tennis at one
I thought
point.
that's why you said
Yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Where it's just like, they're volleying at each other constantly, and Jane has this great monologue about Jordan's here to being the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and
Mhm,
her volleying balls at him and
mhm.
he's just not reacting or responding.
And then
Um,
immediately after that is said, then we
yeah,
have just like a soliloquy
yes,
from Jordan's character where he's just standing there. And I don't know if this is written into the stage directions or if this
yeah,
is Steven's choice as the director, but while he's doing this monologue, Jaden is miming playing tennis at
yes,
him, and he's just like standing there saying his piece, not
yeah,
interacting with it at
yeah.
all. I thought that was
It's
such a
very
brilliant little bit of
similar
staging.
to in scene one,
Hmm.
where when Jane is doing her Casper monologue, Jordan is then walking around the perimeter of the stage
Hmm.
in like a 10 tick a tan slow walk, like
Okay.
almost like a ghost walking
Interesting.
around.
So this is an
So,
established convention of when one character
yes,
has like an aside, the other
yes,
is doing some sort of thematically
Correct.
rich stage business.
Correct.
Now, that's interesting because I didn't realize from your description earlier that Jordan's character doesn't hear about the Casper monologue.
Yeah, no, he's already left the scene by that point.
Okay, so that's some sort of context for
Yeah,
Jaden's
she's alone.
interiority that he misses.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, neat.
Yeah, no, like I just thought the set and the costume, like just the way we see Jaden go from very well put together school.
Mhm.
I did like the touch of her shoes,
Hmm.
which were like almost like a ballet slippery shoe, which made her constantly not sure-footed. Like you notice the way
Hmm.
like almost her rolling her ankles a little bit, so it almost at times made her seem like she was once again like if you're drunk, you're not always sure-footed on your feet. You're a little, deer on ice sometimes, or like
Interesting.
just
Didn't notice that.
so I love the fact that she wasn't in
Hmm.
secure shoes. It was very soft shoe that could allow you to kind of roll a bit as
Mhm.
you're uncomfortable. Yeah, and then we also should talk about Matilda Kane as the lighting designer, who
Yes,
had a
which
lot
lighting is
of
used
great.
very prominently throughout this.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, it is. You had to either do the TV or highlight certain prop and elements, which we'll talk about
Hmm.
in a bit. The way they use the lighting to either do the monologues and have those little moments, or like have like a moment where it's like a light swinging, like the way once again using the space really well.
Yeah.
And I mean,
And
Abby Cruz and our sound design, we shouldn't leave
yeah.
we shouldn't leave them out.
Yeah.
But like the sound design was an interesting one because it was there, but it wasn't needed to be like drawing focus until the very final scene
And with
when
there's
sound
a
does become important.
a notable subwoofer
Yes,
becomes
yes.
part of the not
The
just the
Deus
sound
Ex
design.
subwoofer.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, like sound design was an interesting one where it wasn't always needed, but like it was there. Like it was one of those great little moments of, oh yeah, it's there. It's one of those great subtle
Mhm.
bits of production where it doesn't need to be, or it didn't need to be full on like always present, but when it did need to be present, you really wanted it there.
Yeah, I'm trying to
That
even
subwoofer.
recall, and I feel bad if I didn't take better note of this. I was also flustered coming in
Mhm.
late, but was there like prominent like music featured like during scene transitions when they're moving all the furniture? Was there anything sort of that you caught
There's
that
like
of that
some
nature?
sound design, but like not like a song or anything. It's more
Hmm.
just like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like ambient noise,
Okay,
or even like a news article or like a newscast announcing the next step of the invasion or whatever.
right.
So, so
And
you,
there
so you
were
stay
several
active
moments
in
where
that
they turn
story.
on the TV, but we don't actually see a
Yes.
screen or a monitor of any kind, but we
Yeah.
hear a
Yeah.
lot of bombing too. When anytime they
Yes.
turn on the TV, that was the key
Hmm.
sound of like, yep, we're looking at the war, not even being mediated through news anchor telling us about it most of the
Yeah.
time. It was just, yep, this is the sound of people getting exploded, which
Bombing.
is a
Yeah.
very, visceral,
Yes.
oral signature of that.
Exactly. Well, what do you say we throw up our spoiler necktie there, Ryan?
Okay, let's throw it up.
Oh gosh.
Spoilers from here on out. Is that
Yes.
too gallows humor, literally?
I
Um,
think it's just right. Just right.
okay,
Yeah.
so yes, so there is a red necktie
Hmm.
indicating spoilers on the screen right
Yeah.
now. Again,
Yeah.
this production has already come and gone, so it's not like anyone in Toronto can see it. But if people
Yes.
want to read the play, if they're watching this in anticipation of a future production of this play,
Hmm.
now's your chance to jump ship before we talk about the spoilers. Okay, so do you want to finish our plot synopsis with just like the important bit of the end where
Yes.
this is heading?
Yes. Yes, for sure. Okay. So, where we pick up, basically, we find out later on that. So, well, first of all, there's a big confrontation scene. So you have the art gallery scene. Then the following scene is another dinner scene where Hannah is supposed to be there. But like Maris and Fraser, she opts not to be seen. And this prompts them to have a bigger conversation about Hannah. And ultimately, Jaden's character reveals to B's character that she has messaged his friends to let them know about, first of all, his political views, which is red flag number one of don't do that. And then also that she messaged his mom, and that this conversation then led to all his friends and his mom both voicing their disdain for B's relationship with Hannah, which obviously upsets B a lot, and he storms out saying that he is done with a being in his life, basically. The following scene then takes us to, I guess, almost a year, a few months later.
Yeah,
Like
I don't think they give us a specific time, at least not in the
either way,
dialogue.
a significant amount of time has passed. It's not just like a week; it's months
Mhm.
have gone by, and they run into each other at this bar. Oh no, sorry, they have set up a meeting with each other.
Mhm.
It's not just a random running into each other. Where we now see A's drinking has really gotten worse. So we get that scene in the bar where we find A's drinking has gotten way worse, ultimately resulting in her quitting her job as a teacher. Because one day she just walked in and went, fuck it.
Mhm.
I don't want to do this anymore. I have no life, underpaid, whole 9 yards. And he goes, well, did you ever think about talking to anyone before you did this? And she kind of blows him off there. Important later. We find out that Hannah is pregnant, whether through IVF or through a broken condom or trying. Like, either way, point being is she is now pregnant. They're settling down. They have this great exchange where B brings up the fact that, like, are we talking about the war? Or are we talking about my relationship with Hannah?
Haha, the title has double meaning.
That's
Fancy
right.
that.
That's right. Good old Mike Bartlet, you.
Okay, I have more thoughts about that, but finish the
Yeah,
synopsis before
yeah,
I derail us.
yeah, yeah. So then we get to the next scene where basically B shows up at A's house very distraught as we find out that they've now had the baby and Hannah is kicking B out and keeping the child.
And she's been
Uh,
cheating on him
and she's been cheating on him too.
from the start, pretty much, it seems, or at least
Yes.
before the child
Yes.
was born, which could
Yeah.
also maybe make us think, oh, did she actually get an IVF or,
Yeah. Right.
or,
Well, once again, that which that just makes me think of Mr. Zero from When Harry Met Sally, where Billy Crystal's character talks about the movers knowing about his divorce before he does.
right.
Which I was like, because
It
after
all
watching
comes
the
back
show,
to Harry and Sally.
well, listen, like I actually went back and rewatched that movie last night because I was like, am I like pulling this analogy out of my butt, or is there actual some correlation here? I'm like, there is.
Okay,
Uh,
I need to rewatch it, I guess. I've been meaning to since sadly we lost Rob Reiner, but
yeah, it's a great movie. I love it.
it is a great movie. I just haven't seen
Yeah.
it in a while, so you have the more immediate frames of
Yes.
reference.
Yes.
You just rewatched it last night. That's funny.
Where was I going with that? All right. Okay. Yes. So basically, B's relationship with Hannah has spiraled out, and he called A's character and said, "I need help," and she said, "Come over right away." And when he gets there, she appears to be sober
Mhm.
because she's sitting in this chair, like almost like the canary or the cat ate the canary.
Yeah, and she
Uh,
claims to have quit drinking cold turkey.
yes. Yes. Ultimately, we find out not the case,
Mhm.
that actually she has gotten way worse in her drinking. She is unemployed. She is spiraling to the point now where she has bought rope and has constructed a noose that she will then use to complete suicide. But the problem is, B took a cab to get to her place instead of walking, which
Which doesn't make any sense because he just said he was like living in his car. Why would he take a cab? Why wouldn't he drive in the car that he's been sleeping in?
I assume because maybe the car's got like a lot, like a unpaid parking ticket enough that it's like they put the lock on the car wheel so you can't drive away.
Okay, that would have been nice if they specified so I don't have this
I
really
don't know. Like I just
weird
made
nitpicky question.
I'm just wondering maybe like if there's a reason or if like maybe the car's out of gas. I don't know.
Again, yes, maybe there's nowhere to
Yeah.
park in front of her apartment,
Yeah.
so he took
Yeah.
the cab to not have to think about
Yes.
it. Just seems strange that like they specifically said moments earlier I'm
Yeah.
sleeping in my car, and
And he
then
didn't
he
drive
took
over.
why did he not take his car to be
Good
here?
question.
What a
Good
weird thing
question.
that a dramaturg should have caught. Anyway, go on.
Yes. Yes. So, but the point being is that normally she assumes that he walks to her place.
Mhm.
Ergo, she thought she had enough time to unlock the door, complete suicide. So he finds her hanging,
Mhm.
and she has weighted the rope enough that it should be basically when you drop. There's two ways that it happens. Either one is the knot severs the spinal cord, killing you instantly, or it's a slow choking death instead. So she assumes that she has enough time to do this and that he will walk in just in time to find her having completed suicide as her kind of saying, "You really fucked up my life, ergo I'm bowing out." Not that I think she blames him entirely for
Yeah,
everything that's happened, but I think there's part of her that does
so I'm
to some
confused
level.
about that, and I thought maybe I'd missed something important. But like, what aspect of the way her life turned out is his fault from hers or anyone's perspective?
I think it's because it all starts from that first scene of he misses the protest, ergo she gets drinking, upset. They have
Okay.
this. They have the meeting at her house where she continues to drink, gets more belligerent, pushes him, which then starts the domino of him avoiding her and their relationship beginning to spiral out.
Okay, that all feels like a reach to me. I'm sure she drank before he missed the
She did,
protest.
she did, but it was one of those things of it just gets worse from this one dinner situation where she pushed him because she was already belligerently drunk.
Okay, but she's the one who pushed him, so all the more reason why I feel like she shouldn't be blaming him for her tragic
Well,
downfall.
I think that that's also part of it, is that like she is unnecessarily blaming him too much, like over the top. Like it's like she's making excuses, and she's using some of her anger of being abandoned by him
Okay. Because it felt
toward.
to me like we were supposed to agree with her that he is to blame, not to agree with the conclusion she comes to of how she
Mhm.
should deal with it. But it didn't seem like there was anything in the way that final scene unfolded that to me signposted that she's being unreasonable here.
I mean, I think it's the point of he avoided her,
Okay.
and and clearly she was needing help, because she says later on, as we find out, she did try calling him when she was about to quit her job, and he actively ignored her calls. But when he
Okay.
called her, she answered right away and said, "No problem, come over."
Sure. I don't know. Yeah, it seems, I don't know. I have more
Once again,
thoughts, but
this is
we'll.
a very messy friendship. This is a
Yeah,
very
it's a bit of a
messy.
messy play about a messy friendship, but
Yes,
it can be
yes.
both.
I think you're right. I think both things are correct, where it's like, yeah, B did kind of neglect his friendship with A in favor of Hannah. And that in turn resulted in more animosity growing between the two of them, leading to this disintegration of their friendship. So it's one of those things where it's like, there is that, but then also like she takes it to the extreme of, he already has clocked that she has a drinking problem, because he talks about it in scene one, that he's concerned about the amount she's drinking. That right there already says that she's already in a very flawed state. Anyway, point being is, he arrives early, upset. She then tries to complete suicide. He catches her, but in the process, I guess she kicks away all the furniture that's too close to help. So now he is stuck holding her up.
Yeah.
And as a result of this, he can't get more aid to help her, and she's slowly choking to death
Yeah.
in the process, because he can't get her high enough. Like I was almost like, just get her up on like your shoulders so you can like really lift her. But maybe that's just
Well, I
not.
think in the angle he was at, that would be very
Yeah.
difficult to maneuver himself into
Yes.
that position.
That
He's
yeah.
just stuck that if I
Yeah.
let go even a little bit, she will fall and die. So I just have
Yes.
to keep holding her for as long as
Yes.
I humanly can. And then
Yes.
what's the end game here? How do we get
Yeah.
help? What can we do?
Yeah. I think Steven did a good job of staging it in a way
Oh
that
yeah,
it was
excellently staged, that whole sequence.
right. Right,
Mhm.
because I mean, like that's the thing. It's like I agree with you. Like the way they were positioned, it made it very clear that it was very hard to get her like up on his shoulders. Like I was just thinking, on so panicked, being like, do something more than just what you're doing.
He's trying.
He's trying, and so now it gets into kind of like a Jack and Rose situation of, him trying to save her, and she's stuck, kind of in a spot, you know, it all just keeps spiraling, and ultimately they come up with this plan for the subwoofer to try and make that loud enough that's going to piss somebody off in the building. The police or the neighbor or the police are going to show up at the door. They can then call for help, because he tries calling for help and she goes, nobody listens to that. So that's kind of where the play ends. Is that we hear kind of a bang, but we don't know if that's the noise from the bombing on the TV, or is that somebody at the door coming to help them.
Yeah,
And that's kind of where it
we're
ends.
suspended in this ambiguous state at
That's
the end,
right.
literally.
That's right. Okay, so now that we've gone to the kind of revealed the big final ending pieces of this plot, what was your thoughts, Ryan?
Okay, lots of thoughts. I think that entire final scene is excellent. Like the whole, just
Mm-hmm.
the suspense of it,
Yeah.
this is where their friendship has brought them. This is just what's going to happen. What can he do? Him trying to be resourceful, but things like not seeming like they're working out, and
Yeah.
just the slipping, the having to like constantly like
Yeah.
fix.
Yeah.
Excellent character drama, excellent tension, excellent staging.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't feel, and I was wanting to credit this to, I just missed
Yeah.
something important at the beginning, but now that you fill me in, I
Yeah.
don't really feel like I have. I don't really feel like this is where the play was heading this whole time. I think
Hmm.
Mike Bartlet wrote two plays that he stitched together into one play. And like you mentioned, the Casper
Yeah.
monologue as C,
Yeah.
foreshadowing suicide, but the fact that
Yeah.
I missed that monologue and didn't feel like I missed anything important and it never
Mm-hmm.
comes up again, that's not good foreshadowing, in my
Yeah.
opinion. That
Yeah.
is, oh right, see, this is all one play. But
I
I
recommend
don't
going
think it
back and
is.
reading like the first scene. Like just go find the PDF
Sure,
online
yeah,
and maybe
which
try
I
and give the first scene a read.
yeah, like
Just to
I'm
see what's maybe there that maybe I forgot or missed a
yeah.
detail.
But just like the thing that I was like harping on
Mm-hmm.
before is like I really don't feel like any of this is B's fault.
Mm-hmm.
what
Yes.
the situation that A
Hmm.
finds herself in, to the point where she wanted to punish him for it by making him find her
Yeah.
dangling there. Like that, I get that she's in a bad state and she
Yeah.
just wants to end it. I understand that,
And
but
usually people who are in that state are not thinking clearly. They are
that's
blaming and
fine. But
spiraling out at everybody else around
that
them.
feels like a playwright's cheat that, like, haha, the character isn't thinking, therefore I don't have to either. Like that, I would like a little more thematic
Mhm.
resonance with, oh, this is where it was heading, this is what it's
Yeah.
about. And some of the things they talk about while they're in that suspended state tie together threads about the war. But
Mhm.
this is the other thing that I kind of gripe at with this show. I kind of hate it when I feel like I can see the matrix code of how an idea gestated into, hey, that's a thought I had to, now I'm
Yeah.
writing a play about it. And i don't
Right.
i don't hate that, just the fact that that happens. I hate
Mhm.
specifically this type of it, which is when the playwright thought of a double meaning wordplay and ran with it. And I don't really feel like those two things
Mhm.
have anything to do with each other. The military intervention and the confronting your friend about their problem
Mhm.
intervention, it's the fact that they keep bringing up, like, you believe in the war and you're not on our side in the
Mhm.
protest, like that feels so unrelated to everything else
I
that's
took
happening
it.
in this play.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I took that as like once again, it's a catalyst. It's a constant conversation
Mm-hmm.
beat for them where they are constantly coming back to this because it was such an inciting incident for this play of B chose not to go to this protest about this military intervention, and that has just constantly been in the craw of A's character, and it's one of those things where it's a festering wound
Okay,
that keeps coming back.
here's
And
why I don't like that, and let me
okay,
explain. Because if it's just that this thing made a festering wound, it could have been anything. It could have been he
right,
forgot her fucking birthday. The
yes,
fact that it's about the military intervention, double meaning in our title,
hmm,
has nothing to do with the human
hmm,
drama of what they're
hmm,
fighting about. And that's not to say that the political commentary about different sides of this argument
hmm,
isn't peppered through it and
yeah,
isn't something that Bartlett
hmm,
clearly had on his mind. But this is why I say it's kind of, we're in separate plays here,
hmm,
that putting that in every so often because,
hmm,
intervention means two things. I feel the same way,
hmm,
honestly, about Cock, the other Mike Bartlett play
yeah,
that we recently had a Talk is Free theater production of here in Toronto. And I
hmm,
said a version of this in the review I wrote at the time, is that the staging of that show, it's
hmm,
certainly how Talk is Free did it, but it seems consistent with how it's often
yeah,
staged, is that, and I even mentioned this in my review, that the Wikipedia article for the play Cock mentions that the final scene should feel like a cockfight, and has like 5 footnotes
yeah,
to various reviews that have compared that final scene to a cockfight.
yeah,
But the thing that I wrote in my review, and this is like over a year ago, so I'll paraphrase myself here,
hmm,
but why is it important to frame this as a cockfight? Because that's certainly what director
hmm,
Dylan Trowbridge did in his staging. He made it feel like you're in a grungy
yeah,
industrial setting, even staging it
yeah,
specifically in that type of setting, where you feel like you are betting on this illicit thing. We're in the round, we're
yeah,
surrounding them.
yeah,
But then when you actually think about, well, what's happening in the
hmm,
play, it is a man and a woman fighting over another man. And
yes.
that's
That
not,
play made me so mad when I saw that
I
play.
know for different
Yeah,
reasons for than what I'm griping at here, but
yeah,
but the thing that I
yeah,
find is like, what part of this setup
hmm,
screams this is a cockfight other than staging it like a cockfight?
right,
A cockfight is a competition between two male poultry. Cock
yes,
literally means rooster. So
yes.
right off the bat, the gender dynamic is not,
Little Jerry.
yeah, haha, Seinfeld reference. But yeah, right off the bat, the gender dynamic is not reminiscent of a cockfight.
Yeah.
It's not like the roosters are fighting over some
Mhm.
sexy lady chicken. Like they're only in the situation not by any internal drama or motives of their
Yeah.
own. They're made to fight each other because of
Mhm.
these outside forces that want to profit off of which of them will
Mhm.
kill the other. The fact that
Yes.
it's that kind of high stakes murder fight, it
Mhm.
has nothing to do with the love triangle in this here.
Yeah.
Again and again, I just like, and I listed a whole bunch of these in my review, that like none of these things that you can think of what makes something a cockfight are resonant with the situation.
Mhm.
So why did Bartlett write this play that clearly sets up this setting of it's like a cockfight to get people to stage it like a cockfight so Wikipedia could call it a cockfight? I'm just like, this and my whole sort of problem with it is that watching that production, like experientially, it was great.
Mhm.
I felt like I was in it,
Yeah.
but what I felt like I was in felt like the wrong thing for the metaphor he was going for here.
Yeah.
And now yet another Mike Bartlett play makes me feel the same way, is that you had an interesting pun. And like I think with
Mhm.
cock, it's also that kind of pun that I
Yeah.
think it's more common in British slang to call
Mhm.
some guy a cock when he's being a
Yes.
dick, as opposed to we would just say a dick. but the fact that haha, cock like rooster, like cockfight, I will write a play about a
Mhm.
love triangle that's like a cockfight.
Mhm.
And I think he did it again here, is that haha, military intervention and substance abuse intervention. I
Mhm.
can work with this, but I don't think he really can, is my problem with this. I think he's a little too full of his own attempts at wordplay without actually paying off the check that he wrote.
Mhm.
End rant.
Yeah.
Thoughts about any of that?
I mean, for me, like, I just enjoyed the play on the fact that we have so many interventions going on. We have the military intervention, we got the alcohol intervention, and we got the relationship intervention all happening. Like,
But they
whether or not they
don't
all
say anything
perfectly,
to each other. So what's the
well,
point of putting them
but I'm okay
together?
with that. Like, I'm okay with them not perfectly connecting to each other. It's more just they're always like it's all there. Like they're just all
That just sounds
happening
like you're
around each
saying you're
other.
okay with bad playwriting to me.
No. Once again, like if it was really bad and I really felt like this is really not working, then I'd be ticked off. Because,
Okay.
but the fact, but for me, I was like, yeah, this military intervention is this ongoing issue in the background. It's just another type of intervention that's happening. It's a humanitarian crisis where people feel the need to go in and help, you know, help help these people. And these characters are doing the same thing where, you have Hannah being a interventionist sending AA material when she did not ask for it. She did not, request it. You have B also at the same time not asking for A's opinion on whether or not he should be with Hannah. And the fact that A went around him and talked to all his family and his mother and his friends to say, hey, what do we think of Hannah? And they all hate her, all hate her, which isolates him further in the situation. And then you also, is that all of them? Yeah, I
Well,
think that's all
yeah.
of them. Did I cover
There's a
them all?
whole well, yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
guess let me try to
yeah,
make sense of what you're
yeah,
getting at here,
yes,
or because I agree there are
yeah,
things throughout the plot that
yeah,
are interventionist in nature,
yeah. And
we could
thematically
say.
kind of connect to each other.
That's I think what he's trying to do. Here's why I
Yes.
don't think that works, or why he succeeded at
Hmm.
making something
Hmm.
meaningful out of that.
Hmm.
Because the military intervention that they're initially fighting over
Yeah,
never really succeeds at being an argument about the ethics of intervention that then those
true.
relationship interventions could be commenting on.
Yeah.
The
Well, I mean, we hear about it throughout, and we hear that it's gotten worse. Like it wasn't like a quick intervention. Like they're
yeah,
now mucked down in this basically war, almost like when the Americans went into the war in the Middle East, where
which
like,
yeah, they
yeah,
could explicitly compare it to Iraq with the in the
yes,
art gallery the painting of Bill
yeah,
Clinton, or the
yeah,
photoshopped photo of Bill
yes,
Clinton exploding Iraq,
yes,
to
yeah,
comment on the
yeah,
road that he set up to let us there,
yeah,
even if we don't associate him as
yeah,
the primary merchant of death in that
yes,
situation. um but I guess, like, to me, while they every so often talk about, B will elucidate why he thinks
hmm
it's relevant. He talked about
hmm
his, was it a translator friend, Mahmoud,
interpreter friend
interpreter
Mahmoud
friend, yeah, who's
could be dead or
uncertain,
alive. We don't know.
yeah,
Yeah,
whose uncertain fate
yeah,
informs his
yeah,
perspective on why he thinks that his
hmm
country, probably Britain, has an ethical imperative to
yes,
intervene, versus A's perspective of why that'll only make things worse, as we've seen
hmm
throughout history.
yeah,
But I guess, well, also, first of all, something that I find annoying about it, that whatever, to each their own, is they never specified what countries this is, correct?
yes. They never,
Okay.
they never do.
I just find that rather vague to the point of feckless. It's like, I guess
I took it as like because this play came out. We said 2014, right?
I didn't say anything. Did you look this up?
I don't know. I thought
What?
yesterday you had said it was like 2014 when this play had come out.
I'm not certain. I haven't looked
Let's
it up for
see.
this play in particular.
Let's see. Hold on.
I know
Let me just
what a
double check
famous
what.
Mike Bartlet play, Charles III, has outlived its
Yes.
applicability in terms, but I couldn't tell you when.
So it was published in 2014.
Okay, there you go.
So because of that, I always took it as whether it was from American or British point of view that it was like basically the war they were talking about intervening in, because both America and the British went into the Middle East. That basically I took it as like basically it was the war on terrorism.
Well,
That,
yeah, but well, and specifically like the Iraq War.
yes,
But
like that's what I took it as.
here's why it can't be that, textually can't be that, is
Why?
because of they talk about that painting or that photo with Bill Clinton and his role in the Iraq War, not as that's the war we're talking about, as like a, this piece of art about this other thing can make us think about our current situation.
True.
So
True.
they are explicitly not talking about the Iraq War. They are talking about some other vague war that they refuse to name. It reminds me of a play that you and Jill liked a lot more than I did. You two reviewed it, not me. Dissonant Species, that you two reviewed on the Cup fairly
Oh
recently.
yes, 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 yes,
There was
yes.
just a line that really irked me in that, where Nicholas Eddy's character just blurts out randomly, there's a war going on. How do
Oh
you
yeah.
feel about the war? And then they won't specify what. Just say fucking Gaza, like, or
Yeah.
Ukraine, or like
Yeah.
the the
Choose a
vague
war.
the vaguer you are, the more
Yeah.
spineless you look
Yes.
as a playwright or creator in that case, because that was a devised piece.
But is
But
he actively making it like is he actively choosing to not name a war because it ensures that no matter what time you produce this play,
it'll be
we know there's
equally.
some military intervention war going on in the world that could precipitate a debate like this.
Here's the thing. I freaking love this book. Tyrant by Stephen Greenblatt, Shakespeare on
I've seen it at
Politics.
Stratford
Yeah,
on the
excellent
bookshelf.
book. I got it signed at Stratford actually when Stephen Greenblatt gave one of
Ah,
his
very good.
Megan Forum talks. Anyway, that is a book about Donald Trump that never
Ah,
once mentions Trump by name.
right.
It talks about how Shakespeare depicted tyranny, and every sentence of this book is about Donald Trump in a way that it is impossible to miss.
Yeah.
And yet, the way he does this, Greenblatt, is by
Hmm.
talking about how Shakespeare would never comment on the politics of his own time. He would
Right.
represent it through oblique angles. He
Yes.
wasn't talking about Queen Elizabeth. He was
The,
representing Queen Elizabeth through the personage of, say,
Henry
Cleopatra.
V trying to,
Yeah,
go off to Agincourt just as Elizabeth was trying to invade Ireland.
exactly. But you know what Shakespeare didn't do? A war. He
Yeah.
did a specific historical
That's
war
true.
that creates enough
Yeah.
plausible deniability that he's not talking about the
Yeah.
present thing, but
Yeah.
still has enough resonant
Hmm.
concreteness that we can both treat it as
Yeah.
not the present thing, but
Yeah.
also very much the present thing. Those
Yeah.
oblique angles are important to how
Hmm.
Shakespeare depicted politics and how a very astute
Yeah.
writer like Greenblatt could talk about contemporary politics through the prism of Shakespeare's oblique
Yeah.
angles.
Yes.
But you need to have the angles. They must be oblique, not
Yeah.
ambiguously nothing.
True.
That's something that I just get
That's a fair
frustrated
point.
by.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I agree with that.
Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
more rants from me. I guess I dislike this more than I realized. I thought it was very
You
well
and Mike
performed.
Bartlett need to go into a cock cage and fight it out.
Yeah, it'll mean nothing. It'll mean nothing because that's what he does. I really
Yeah.
like Charles III. I think that's a fun play. That's unfortunately
It is.
what we
Yeah.
can't do it anymore because there's a
No,
real Charles III.
there is. There is. I will say something that Jaden told me after the show because we talked about the red rope around the stage. So originally in the staging of actually this scene,
Mhm.
funnily enough, uh, there was going to be a noose that dropped down from the flies,
Sure, yeah.
the
Or the
ceiling.
lighting grid or whatever they
Yeah,
have on top.
the lighting grid, and that was going to be what they were going to use for the hanging scene, or this final scene. Ultimately, though, they realized when doing it that it was very awkward, and basically the stage would have to be on the side, like using a pulley and tying it off, and be very obvious that like because you can't hide the stage manager,
Yeah, it's too
literally
small a
right there in the
space.
corner. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That they went, this is not working, but they're like, well, what are we going to do with this, material that we have purchased? We got to find some use for it. So I thought they made a very good choice of using it as almost like a boxing ring, kind of outlining the square where they're going to face off with each other. Because at the beginning of the show, I forgot to mention this too, as you have the addiction podcast playing, you have both actors on stage sitting at either end of the ring, just staring at each other, just looking at each other, almost like boxers waiting to go into the ring.
Which is how Talk is Free also
Yes.
staged the beginning of Cockfight, where they're like
Yes.
staring each other down, doing
Yes.
push-ups. And I guess,
Yes.
is this just a Bartlett thing? Does he write this into the stage directions?
We gotta find out
Why
now,
are his
Ryan.
characters staring each other down all the time?
So then they didn't end up using the noose that they had created for this situation, but instead they got really smart and used Bee's necktie.
Okay, yes,
As the
and
news.
to that. Because they
Yes,
do
go ahead.
right before that scene
Yeah.
starts, Jaden walks over to the
Yeah.
side that's like been the TV and
Yes.
hangs the red rope noose,
Right over here.
which you can see if for
Yeah.
those watching on YouTube, there's like a red blob on the side of Mac's
Yeah.
head on his green screen.
Yeah.
That is the noose hanging. So wherever the
Yeah.
camera is positioned in this
Yes.
picture is there. And the lighting design, which again,
Yeah.
we're going back to Matilda
Yeah.
Kane's lighting here,
Yeah.
has a big like floodlight.
Spotlight. Yeah.
Yeah, that seemed like it was trying to project the shadow of that
That's what I thought
noose.
too, but I don't think it was lining up perfectly.
Yeah, and it wasn't like crisp enough that like it kind of just looked like a
Yes.
shadowy blob.
Yeah.
Whereas I
Yeah.
feel like the staging was supposed to be that Jaden is standing there
Yeah.
in the circle of it.
Yes.
I didn't know this backstory of how they wanted the actual noose to be on her in that
Yeah.
moment. But I think what they came up with was really good, which is unfortunate that they even kept the red noose at all.
Yeah.
Because the shadow wasn't working, the actual using it, but they used the necktie
Yeah.
to represent it, and
Yeah.
I have one on me right now, so I
Yes, you
will
do.
demonstrate, I guess. But Jaden like had it around
Yeah.
her neck, and
Yeah.
she was holding herself
Yeah.
up by it while standing on the chair that
Yeah.
we know semiotically has been kicked away, but
Yes.
phenomenologically still exists underneath her
Yeah.
feet. And yeah, and she's like just holding herself by this noose, the noose that is literally the tie he was wearing this whole
Yeah.
time, which as a visual metaphor is, oh, he did this to her, she's using him as the catalyst for it. I don't
Yeah.
agree with that as a reading, but it's a nice
Yeah.
visual way of, if that did make sense, it is conveyed here. All right, sorry, continue.
Right? No. Like that was it. Like I was just pointing out that angle of the story, the fact that like they had another plan in true theater fashion. When that plan does not work, you turn to another alternative, which actually turned out to be a better one.
Yes, cheers
in my opinion, because the fact that, yes, you said as her using his necktie and just the sleek way they did it. In that kerfuffle of him trying to stop her from hanging herself was so well done. It was so smooth that it took me to realize what she was doing. Like I knew she was hanging herself, but like the fact that she was using the necktie took me a minute to be like, what is she using? I'm like, brilliant, well done, well done.
Great bit of staging there and good problem solving.
So I mean, like I thoroughly enjoyed this piece. I agree with you. The piece is not perfect. It has some flaws, but I think Steven and Jaden and Jordan and the team did a very good job of pulling a very compelling piece. That in the moment when you're watching it, you're really into it. But then, as you say, as you leave and sit back and go, wait a minute, Mike Bartlet, what did you do here?
And I've been feeling that way about a lot of plays I've seen lately, not just ones by Mike Bartlett, but in the moment it's great and so well performed, well put together that you're in it, but you're in it thinking that there's a promise that this is going somewhere thematically satisfying, not just narratively satisfying. And I find I'm getting a lot of irksome feelings as I leave theaters for things I was enjoying once I think about it, that I don't know if this comes together. And I think the playwright just likes wordplay more than he likes themes.
That's true.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Well, Ryan, could this be a bigger editorial on some flaws of modern playwriting where you're leaving more frustrated?
I don't think I need to build a whole editorial around my pet peeves. If other people are enjoying it, so be it. Let them have it. But
I will say something we talked about after the show with Jaden and Jake, one of the producers and her partner, is we all said we wish this run was longer, but unfortunately with modern playwriting rights, it is way too expensive. So I recommend people looking into or estates and things like that, maybe trying to look into that topic a bit more, because it's not fair that and we always talk about how, why are we doing another Shakespeare? Why are we doing another, Oscar
Ibsen
Wilde play? Like
anything in the
Ibsen
public domain.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic where I'm like, I mean, maybe this will become an editorial. I don't know, but it's just one of those things. My heart went out to Jaden and Jake and the team at Downstage Theatre, where they put together a really solid show, but they could literally only afford to do it this one long weekend because of how high the rights were to do this piece that is literally over a decade old. And my heart just went out to them because they put together a really strong piece, and I wish more people could have a chance to see this piece. If it had maybe another weekend or two to really grow legs, I think it really could have been really captivating. But yeah, unfortunately, with the way the current system is set up, it's not a thing that allows for that. And then we ultimately end up with another Taming of the Shrew or another
We don't get another
It,
Taming of the Shrew. When was the last time you saw Taming of the Shrew?
I was playing a Shakespeare
We
play.
get
Oh my
another
god!
Midsummer Night's Dream with both,
Yeah.
which both
Oh
Jaden and
gosh.
Steven were in
Yeah.
recently,
That is true.
which
That is
was
true.
probably how they met. I don't know, but
Yeah.
anyway, I have a mini thought about this.
Yeah.
Not to go on a whole
Yeah.
editorial about
Yeah.
it, but playwrights got to get paid. I get that.
Yes. Yeah.
You write the play, your job is
Yeah.
done. If people want to do it, you should get paid for
Yeah.
that, whether
Yeah.
or not the price point is too high, but also it's converting from
Mm-hmm.
Great British pounds. I don't know. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to litigate the
Mm-hmm.
price point. But what I
Yeah.
will say about this
Mm-hmm.
is I believe I can't seem to find a specific mandate for this Downstage
Mm-hmm.
Company, but
Mm-hmm.
I believe I read somewhere that they're interested in vital works that speak to the present moment in our
Mm-hmm.
time. So I get that they don't want to plumb the depths of the public domain. They don't want to just
Mm-hmm.
do something old because
Yeah.
it's free, like you've
Yeah.
said. But there are a lot of local playwrights who would
Mm-hmm.
love to see their works on stage.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Downstage Theatre Company has begun planning their sophomore production, but if they
Mm-hmm.
haven't, my challenge to them would be to do a new play, or perhaps
Yeah.
even the second production of a play by a local author, because how
Mm.
hard is it to get a second production of your
It's
new
true.
play? And you can often self-produce, maybe at
Mm-hmm.
Fringe, but there's a lot of really interesting, vital playwriting that speaks to our
Mm-hmm.
present moment
I agree
right
with that.
here. And
Yep.
on an indie budget, you can cut that local author into your profit share at a
Yep.
much lower price point than what Mike Bartlet charges for his very
Mm-hmm.
famous kind of bad plays, in my opinion. I am all for the, vital works that speak to our present moment, but I'd love to see a work that actually speaks to our present moment, not to
Mm-hmm.
some vague sense of some moment we may or may not be sharing.
Mike Bartlet.
It doesn't mean they have to actually talk about the present day
Mm-hmm.
crises. They can use oblique angles like Shakespeare, like
Mm-hmm.
Greenblatt.
Yeah.
But someone who's writing something today about today, oblique or
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, I think would be a little more interesting to me than, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is a name of a playwright that people recognize. They've seen some of his other works. They
Mm-hmm.
know how famous he is. And I believe that they in the team love this play. I don't think they would have chosen
Mm-hmm.
to produce it at that price point if they
Mm-hmm.
didn't. They surely like it
Mm-hmm.
more than I do. And I don't think it's bad. I just think it's ill conceived in a lot of ways. But
Mm.
I think they can find a play they like just as much by a local author who would jump at the opportunity, not say, how much will you give me for it?
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I highly encourage Jaden and Jake and the team and Jordan, all of them, to go seek out some local playwrights, because there's a lot of good local Canadian theater that I'm sure they could work in with their mandate. Absolutely. But yes. But yes, in general, let's try to bring some of those rights price. Once again, if you're going to be if you're a big regional company, then yes, there should be like price brackets of where your company is, and that should affect how much your rights cost. I think that'd be a more economic
Right. An
way of
indie
doing it.
tier would make sense.
Exactly. Like having an indie tier, which then also, again, that means you get more volume of your work getting produced because more people can afford to do your work. At the same time, a bigger company like like a regional Stratford or a Shaw or a Soul Pepper could pay more because they're a different indie theater price bracket.
But then you get companies like Coal Mine that, for
Yeah.
all intents and purposes, is at the same tier as Soul Pepper or Crows, but counts as indie when it comes to the Doras because of the size of their venue fitting into that loophole. So then,
True.
yeah, maybe just
Ryan,
change.
Ryan, we'll do a whole editorial on this big.
I don't know
topic,
how
who
much more
knows?
there is to say, or how much sway we could even have on this.
We'll have an
topic.
intervention on it.
We will have it. You will sit me down and be like, "Listen, you need to lighten up about Mike Bartlet."
He's my boy, Mike Bartlet.
Yeah. Okay.
Either way.
Well,
all right.
Mac, thank you so much for joining me on this duet review of an intervention by Mike Bartlet, presented as the inaugural production of Downstage Theatre Company, which ran at Native Earth Performing Arts' Giza studio from February 11th to 15th, 2026. Mac, where can people find and follow you?
They can follow me drinking some port and, podcasting about musicals over at Before the Downbeat a Musical podcast. Ryan Borochovitz, give us your classic Ryan Borochovitz send-off that we all know and love.
No need to find and follow me on social media, but if you like me and my theater thoughts, many of them tend to live here on the Cup. That's at COH Theater on
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are Cup of Hemlock Theater on YouTube, where you might be watching this, Cup of Hemlock Theater podcast, and all of the podcast places
That's
where you
right.
might be listening to this. If you like more of my theater thoughts, some of them can be found on Next Magazine. I publish a weekly column there. It's called Theater Scenes. Check it out. It comes out every Tuesday. I sometimes review, but I'm also the editor for all of the reviews that come out for stage content on that platform. So even if I don't always agree with their takes, they get my editorial seal of approval that it's their valid opinions that they can share, just like this was mine. Huzzah.
That's right. Huzzah!
All
Huzzah!
right.
And on that fun note, Ryan.
Yes, thank you for joining us for this intervention. Go intervene in some other way. I don't know. Is that a pun? I don't think it is.
It's as close as Mike Bartlet gets to it.
It really is. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you all in the
everybody.
next episode. Cheers.